Welcome, Josh, to the No Excuses, No Bullshit podcast. Glad to have you here. How has everything been, man? Like long time no
Good.
see.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's been last few months of 23 we're kind of busy, but yeah, just really just continuing to do what I do, my routines and such got to help keep me even, which has been a necessity like the last 6 months. But yeah, overall, life is good. No complaints here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, I would straight dive in and yeah, like I'm the only one here that knows you already, probably. Like,
Yeah.
so you could you talk a little bit about your background? It would be awesome.
Yeah, so I mean most recently, I retired from the US Navy after 23 and a half years. Prior to that, background in athletics, played American football, number of other sports. And so I bring that up because that had a huge role in just my general approach, the ability to stay disciplined, hold myself accountable, and with goal achievement as well. So, and now, I primarily, I'm working, to help others in terms of, goal achievement, self accountability, and, a more disciplined approach to life. Despite the fact that I think there's still a misconception about discipline. I mean,
Yeah.
people think it involves not having any fun or any sort of leisure.
Yeah,
Um,
people
yeah,
think it's boring. People think
yeah,
it's
it's
boring. That's the case.
like an either or
Yeah.
proposition, but there's a lot more to it. So, but yeah, my military background, obviously, my already having a more disciplined approach, being able to hold myself accountable, made it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the career had its challenges, but in general, having that mindset already helped me have a relatively successful career. So, and that's what I'm really just working towards, helping others achieve the same, based on my previous experience.
Yeah, man, I love your work. I'm a big fan of what you're sharing online, and yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, as you say, I think sports especially plays a crucial role to develop discipline. I think that's not always the main thing people are going for, but also like if you're building a business, for
Yeah,
example, any business, if you're fit and you work on yourself, on your physique, that contributes heavily to your discipline.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing I'm finding out really more from the last few years
Mm.
is how critical it is, particularly being physically fit, well, and mentally fit to an extent too. But with stress management plays a
Yes.
huge role.
Definitely.
Because ultimately, especially if you have like physique related goals and you're running around stressed out, with a lack of sleep, you're going to have a hard time meeting those goals, like just based on that alone. So, yeah, it all contributes. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean I couldn't put that much hours in if I would not also exercise and go
Yeah,
to the gym and stuff. That's also a good thing for stress relief, as you say.
yeah,
And so what do you think is the probability like what role plays habits in the probability of success? That's what I wanted to say, sorry.
yeah. No, 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 you're good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I that's a great question because with the new year having just rolled around, um, you get a lot of people, the resolutioners, as I'll call them.
Yeah.
Um, they try to take like a huge bite of whatever the goal is, and then ultimately, I forget the exact percentage. It's a high percentage of people that typically stop pursuing their goal after like 3 weeks into the new year, something like that. And 3 weeks maybe, like I think it is actually lower than that. But the in my own experience, um, the times that I've had the most success, I had, you know, I had, routines that supported what I was working towards. Now, if you're talking about a physique related or, fitness related, it's kind of easy, right? Like have a workout plan, go to the gym at whatever interval and, mix it in with some cardio and whatnot. But, um, I think the most important thing is like you have to be realistic about it. And, I think a lot of people, they want the huge chunks of progress.
Yes.
And the reality is, that huge progress you make is going to be made up of small steps along the way. And so if you don't have things in place that support what you're working towards and you're freewheeling it, you're going to fail. And that now, of course, there's the whole, embrace failure, which is true to an extent, but I'm of the opinion you want to set yourself up for success, like as often as possible. And so when those failures occur, you don't quit. You just like, all right, pick yourself up and then adjust accordingly and keep moving forward. And so, as far as habits go, it all depends on what you're working towards. But ultimately I think the general answer is you need to be doing things that directly support the end goal, even if the end goal is far off. And
Yes.
you need to do those things repeatedly so they become second nature. And that's what will get you closer to your goal.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also a difference to fail the whole time or to learn. I think it's also important to learn how to fail but get back up again very fast.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you should fail the whole time, because this might imply that you just set the bar a little too high.
Right.
We should aim for high goals, but if they are too high and you're constantly failing, that's also not the best case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, that brings up a good point. Like you have to pay attention to the signs and
Yes.
then you have to be flexible because, it's not, success or failure, it's almost made like it's a either or proposition, but there's always that gray area in the middle. So, and that's where most people operate. And yeah, you swing from one side to the other, but like, this life is not, or as the gurus say, progress is not linear, which is true. There's always going to be the ups and downs. So a lot of it comes down to how well you deal with the ups and downs.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, when we talk about habits, what are your favorite habits at the moment, or which goals do you have for 2024? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah. So, it's funny. The other day I was, I don't do resolutions necessarily because, I already, I have my fitness, mental, physical fitness goals. So, I've been working out forever. And so really it's, as it relates to physical fitness, it's just, stay consistent with my training. And on the mental side, I've meditated quite a bit, like on and off the last few years. And so my goal right now is just to meditate like daily. So, I've got some experience under my belt. So I'm like doing 15-minute meditations, which has helped.
Which
I
ones?
use Headspace right now. So, and so,
using a
yeah,
guided meditation, because I was
yeah.
asking because I'm doing yoga nidra, and this
Okay.
is also a really nice technique, and it's not basically not yoga, but
Right.
it's a kind of non-sleep deep rest method. I heard about it in the Andrew Huberman's podcast.
Yeah. I'm going to give that a shot as well. Cause obviously like with the guided stuff, there's really like you kind of hit a ceiling at a certain point. And then, as usual, it's important, I think, to, as you start growing with the technique, look into, different ways you can improve and kind of, go from like medium level to expert level and such. Right. So, and then lastly, the one I had kind of jotted down, I picked up quite a few books last year.
Mhm.
So I made a like a no BS, like, all right, here are the 12 books I'm going to read. Now, that doesn't mean like, I'll read the 12 and be done, but and I have a mix of fiction and nonfiction. So, and more importantly, I made sure those books are relevant to what I'm doing, with business, and then on the personal front as well. And then of course, for the fiction, just interesting stories, to kind of expand my mind. So, and that's the general approach. And really, I turned 45 in like a week. So, my overall goal is really just to, actually, Peter Attia has a book called Outlive, which is on my list. But that approach, I'm trying to live to 100. And so that's
awesome, man. That's the
kind of how,
attitude.
yeah, that's how I try to have goals that support, or rather habits and routines that support, that goal. And so that's the general approach.
Yeah, and reading is a good one. I mean, your fitness is on peak, man. Like, no doubts. You're doing great. And also the reading, I have heard, I can't remember, or was it an article? I don't know, but this is also promotes longevity. I think it's English word, right? And and a daily reading habit also keeps the mind. I think this is a good approach to also force promote, I would say, creativity, because most books, when I'm taking a walk, like I usually do it before lunch, and I listen to Blinks. I use Blinkist for this, also an awesome app, and I listen to one blink a day, and I always get one blink a day is just 15 minutes, Josh.
Okay.
So not a long habit.
Oh, no. I've heard of that. I've heard of that app. And it's a good way. It's definitely a good way to pack it in. That's for sure.
And a lot of good ideas I have created with those sessions. And I mean, even with reading, you don't need to listen to a Blinkist, to the short form or summaries. You can just pick up a book or audio book. You don't need to read if you want to consume information. You could also listen to a book while walking. But I think that the key point here is to daily consume information. That's I think the point, and let your brain do the rest of the work, I would say.
Yeah, and then to add on to the discussion about reading. So I did the program 75 Hard. I did that in 2021, and so one of the tasks as they were in that is to read 10 pages a day. And so I just adopt that. I mean, before I got on this call, since it's 6 something in the morning here, I just read 10 pages, and again, having that floor or ceiling, if you will, kind of helps. Like, it's like, all right, you meet this minimum, and then if you read more than that, cool. But as long as I meet that mark, and that'll help me get through all these books I'm trying to read, like, with no issue. So.
Yeah, you were making a good point with this. You call it ceiling, right?
Floor.
The 10 pages. Yeah, awesome.
For sure.
I'm also doing it with the worst case strategy with my HabitDevs. So we always set a minimum limit. Yeah. And I always tell them, like, take the worst day of your life, like really where there's no energy, no motivation, and think about how much time do you have in total to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the total worst case, and then we just add certain importance percentages to the different habits, and then voila, you have the time you assign to each habit when really the worst case happens, and you still take off all the habits, and this works pretty well. And the thing is, like, most people in the beginning aim way too high, like that's what we already were talking about. Goals, habits, and you need to be realistic. That's the point, but still don't aim too low.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but it's something to the effect of, like, we overestimate how much we can do in a month and underestimate how much we could do in a year. And yeah, as it relates to habits, I mean, I get it. People want to reach the outcome. They want to be a millionaire. They want to have a six pack. They want to, whatever the thing is, but it's like, the reality is like any of those things they take, unless you get like, well, with physique, there's no getting lucky. You're not going to hit the lottery and all of a sudden drop like, however many kilos. Like that takes time. It takes time and effort now with money, but financially it's the same thing. You could hit the lottery, you could, but you likely won't. So it's about doing those daily things that you talked about, right? And more importantly, you bring up a good point. Everyone thinks they're going to be operating at 100, and that's not the case. Like every day, like the reality, I tell my kids all the time, I got 3 teenage, one just turned 20. So I have 3 young adults. And so, I tell them, I was like, you need to get used to operating, being tired, being uncomfortable, and not wanting to do the shit that you have to do. And that's not to say it's every day, but when you have the day when energy is high and you're feeling it, then good, go out and do it. But more often than not, there's gonna be days when it's like, man, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do this walk. But the gratifying feeling you get by doing those things, like it can't be duplicated.
Yes, definitely. And I think also with the progress in general, like if you also with fitness and business and all the stuff, I think you need to disconnect a little from the immediate results you get. As you said, like going to the gym for, I don't know, like 3-4 months don't give you like always the immediate results you expect, but there's something happen internal. Your body is like totally changing, and some of the rewards will be reaped way later than we think. But that's part of the journey, and I think that's what you need to learn, like overcoming that resistance when energy is low and motivation is low. And that's a superhuman skill. That's a superhuman skill.
Yeah. Honestly. I had a coach years back, and so I mean, we've both been on X long enough to, have seen all the platitudes and the cliches and all that. But, this coach told me like early on, and I'm sure I had heard it before, but for whatever reason, it stuck this time. But he said, look, he said, Josh, he's like, you just gotta, you gotta trust the process. And he would always say it, always, because there were days, there were hard days. I'd hit him up, his name's Brian, like, hey man, I'm struggling today. And, he would, we'd kind of do a review of where I was at. And this was to lose weight. And, he would make some adjustments and whatnot, but he would always remind me, like, look, like, you need to believe in what we're working on, what we're working towards, and believe that on the days that don't feel great, that still contributes to the big picture. And to your point about going to the gym, all right, you go to the gym for 3 to 4 months, you may not see like a lot of definition at first, but like what a lot of people overlook is like, okay, if you were consistent for 3 to 4 months, that's huge. Like, and that you're building the foundation from which you can build on. And no one wants to look at that because it doesn't, it doesn't give them that like immediate gratification. But if we're being honest, like we rarely get immediate gratification. So that's like for me, when I'm in the gym, if I, with progressive overload, if I have a new personal record from the week before, I mean, man, I'm doing my little fist pumps in between sets because it's like, I'm celebrating all that shit, man, because it makes a difference.
Awesome. I celebrate every rep I can do more, every kilo I can do more, every handstand push-up I can do more. Like I celebrate, like I'm even celebrating when I'm going to the gym, although I know I have no energy, just honestly go there. And I have hit some heavy records on the worst days.
Yeah.
That's strange. That's strange.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Funny how that works, right?
yeah, no energy, no, like I didn't even wanted to train, but then I was able to do one more handstand push-up or two more. And I was like, okay, what happened? Like it was awesome. Like, and that's the power of not, that's the power of showing up.
Yeah.
Like it's a difference if you, and I already said this in videos. It's a difference if you show up 365 days a year to do something for that goal. And I don't mean training every day, because of course you need some rest days too.
Right.
But like showing up also means for me on rest days, doing your stretching, doing this, or when you're working on your business, showing up every day. And even if you do just 10 minutes, like everything contributes to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
That's at least what I think.
And that's,
yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, it's often like the non-sexy, non-exciting things that have the most impact long-term, because, like, why do you think in the supplement industry, like fat burners are still so prevalent? It's because people are looking for a shortcut.
Yes.
And I forget where I saw it. I think it was on LinkedIn, a guy named Paul Watkins. He's an author. He's out in Australia, but he made the comment, something to the effect of, the only shortcut is the work. And it's true, because like
gold.
Gold. Yeah. At the end of the day, people reach an outcome and then it's, oh, here's how to do this faster. But if you were to peel back the layers on how a particular person succeeded, you would see that, oh, they just worked their ass off for however long. Now, of course,
years, man.
Yeah, there's genetics and other things that, genetics, environment, etc. But like, if you start paying more attention to the variables that affect you and stop worrying about how other people got to whatever the goal is, I think that's a huge part in kind of trimming the fat, so to speak, when it comes to like developing the habits that work for you, doing the things that work for you that help you reach your goals. And so, not necessarily a personalized approach, but more just realizing like most people have what they need to achieve the things they want to achieve, but they spend too much time looking at what other people have and do and then get distracted. So
the constant comparison. And I mean, we see that we see the finished product, right? The finished product in social media. We see an account with 100K followers. We see finished business. We see a guy with, I don't know, 15% body fat, shredded as fuck. Yeah, all of them work their ass off to get there. They didn't do it in 6 months or not even a year, maybe. You just need to put in the reps and give it some. You need to be patient.
Yeah,
that's it, and put in the reps.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, man, was a nice call. Would love to continue talking, but I'm sure we will soon have another talk. Was a great talk with you, and yeah, man, was a pleasure to me. Have a nice rest of the weekend, and see you soon, man.
Yeah, great talking with you, Mitch. Appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon, man.
Awesome. Bye, man.